Well, greetings, everyone. Welcome back to another Book Browse author interview. I'm so excited today, if you can't already tell. And I hope you're in high spirits. You see what I did there, Michelle?
I do, and I love it.
We're going to have a spirit-filled interview today because today we are interviewing Michelle Collins Anderson, author most recently of The Moonshine Women, which I read, loved, and we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk a little bit about just her writing, her themes in her books. Her previous book was The Flower Sisters, and a lot of our Book Browse members, we had Q&As around that earlier. So we're going to go a little bit further into the Moonshine Women, though, in this author interview. So first, welcome, Michelle. Thank you for joining Book Browse.
Thank you so much for inviting me. This is going to be fun.
This is going to be really fun. Well, first off, just to give folks a little bit of some background on you, can you just talk about your background as far as this is your second novel, right? Okay. And how'd you get started?
Well, I think I've always wanted to be a writer ever since I was a kid. In fact, I was visiting my dad this past weekend, and he brought out a laminated copy of the Family Press, which is a handwritten newspaper that I apparently put out circa 1977. So I've been writing for a long time. I went to journalism school at the University of Missouri for college and ended up in a career in advertising and marketing for about 20 years. But secretly, I always wanted to write a novel. And so when my youngest daughter went to kindergarten, I went back to school too and got my MFA in fiction from Warren Wilson College in North Carolina. And then I was fortunate enough, I guess, that right around that time that I was working on that master's and thinking about what I would want to write afterwards, my dad sent me a nonfiction book called The West Plains Dance Hall Explosion. And it is just a small book about our hometown and a tragedy that happened there when the dance hall blew up on a Friday night. So I knew it would make a wonderful novel. And fast forward to today, that Flower Sisters started a 2-book deal with Kensington, and The Moonshine Women is my second novel. So
oh, that's fabulous. It's so interesting how those little stories, even local stories, historic happenings, can really just erupt into something really creative and rich. And I do have your Flower Sisters novel. I haven't gotten to that one yet because I wanted to read The Moonshine Women first, but I'm really excited to go back now.
Yes, don't worry. It took me 10 years to write it. There's no rush.
Okay. Well, that's good. That's good to know. So the big theme in your novels is a history of the Missouri Ozarks, and that's where you grew up, right? I did a little research, and you grew up on a farm, a registered Angus cattle farm. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's right. Yes, I grew up on a farm just south of West Plains, Missouri, which is honestly very close to the Arkansas line. So I'm right in the heart of the Missouri Ozarks, which is just beautiful country with lots of rivers and bluffs and, rolling hills, lots of pasture land. So that was my background. And as I've been writing, I just seem to be drawn to writing about home, even though I've lived so many places as a grown-up, from California to Colorado and Texas and many, many places, cities in Missouri. I seem to have my heart in those Ozarks. So that's where I've been telling my stories.
Wow. Well, and I'm in Colorado right now. It's so funny that you mentioned that.
Awesome.
Yeah. I've never been to the Ozarks, but after reading the novel, it just sounds so beautiful and deeply peaceful. Just deep, back in just the hills and the hollers, right, as they call them.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's talk about the novel. I'm trying to be really careful because I don't want to do any spoilers. I want folks to go out and read the book. So let's just talk about the premise. The Moonshine Women, so that women gives you a key as to what we're going to be talking about here in this novel. So the novel is about the Strong family, and particularly three sisters, very different. And I kind of want to know, they have a still. They have a still, hidden still, and this is 1920s era prohibition. Everybody, so this is the era of the, what is it? Is it the Volks? What is that called? The Volstead Agreement or
The Volstead Act.
Volstead Act and the 18th Amendment, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Which made it illegal to create, drink, or have on your person any type of alcohol. And now we have three different sisters, and they are just trying to survive and keep their still running. But if you can talk about it a little bit further, just the main overall premise, because I want to make sure I don't do any spoilers here.
Sure, I'm happy to talk about the Strong Women. These three sisters live on an Ozark mountainside. It's kind of a hardscrabble life. They're farming. It's pretty much hand-to-mouth existence at that time in America's history. It was a difficult time for farmers. I mean, it's always difficult for farmers, honestly. I think I can say that since I grew up on a farm. But it was particularly bad there in the 20s, right on the cusp of the Great Depression. And so moonshine was made by many families, and probably most families had a still just for their own personal use and maybe to entertain neighbors. But what they discovered during that era was that their corn was worth more by the gallon than it was by the bushel. And so moonshine became a way of supplementing that income that was not really happening with farm prices being so difficult. And so these three sisters and their gran and their father live on this farm. And when tragedy strikes the family, it's up to the women to sort of save the farm and the business by making and running this moonshine themselves. And they end all the way up in Hot Springs, Arkansas, which at that time was known as the loose buckle on the Bible Belt, to sell their wares. And so, of course, there are many obstacles along the way, a bit of a quest for revenge, and just a touch of romance, I would say.
Just a touch, yeah. Well, speaking of, because I fell in love with the women. They were all different, like you said, and I cannot forget, is it Liddy? That's pronounced Liddy. That's the gran. And she just brings such an interesting angle to the story in that she has all of these folk remedies. She has this wealth of knowledge, even more so than Hiram, at times where she has little special things that she can add to some of the batches that really make them super, popular and special. But each woman has such a unique personality, Michelle. And I was wondering, did you base any of these characters on people you've grown up with or you knew about or someone historical even?
The three sisters are not after anyone in particular. Someone asked me which sister I was the other night. And I had to kind of think about it, but I think there's a bit of me in all of those women. Rebecca is such a lover of nature and the farm and animals, and that is certainly a part of me. I am a master gardener and love being outdoors and hiking and growing things. And Elsie is sort of the middle sister who likes a little more glamour. She's more of a social butterfly. She really wants a better, more exciting life, I should say, than what the farm offers. And of course, I did end up leaving my farm for city life. And finally, Shine is just, she's a handful. She's probably more like my alter ego, says whatever she wants. She's a fiery little redhead. Yeah. So I guess she's the sister that I would want to be, just because of her fierce nature and her smarts and wits that she gets by with. But I would say that Liddy is a character that I drew a lot of inspiration from an Ozarks character named a real life woman named May Kennedy McCord. And she had a radio show down in the Ozarks, I believe in the 1940s and forward for a couple decades. And she was always dispensing like granny cures and different kinds of superstitions, folklore. She even celebrated the music of that place. I think she took calls and gave advice. So there was a lot that I learned from her, like vocabulary wise, like the word wang leathery, which I use in the book, is a word that I got from reading that book, just to describe something that's sort of tough.
Yeah. Okay.
But just a wonderful, wonderful book to read and inspire me for that very strong woman character.
Wow. Well, and the book actually kind of opens on with a scene where a woman is giving birth, and there is a folklore about the man wants a son. You have to put a pocket knife underneath the bed.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah,
And
and
if
if
you
it's
want
a
a
girl,
daughter, then you put a skillet under the bed.
I mean it's self-explanatory, right?
I guess so.
So it's just like right off the bat, it's like you're in this space where it's like, oh wow, yeah, this is how in the olden days, how people kind of prepared for these big life events. I wanted to talk about too. Well, out of all three, or well, let's talk about there's you have more women characters that kind of come along later. But what was the easiest sister to write, and who was the most challenging to write?
Gosh, I don't know. I think Shine was probably the easiest, just because she's so emotive, and she is so honest, and she's also just says whatever comes into her head for good or ill. And so it wasn't hard to sort of write somebody with no filter. But so I would say she was the easiest one to write. I think Liddy was the most difficult to write, not because I didn't have a good sense of her character, but because she kind of scared me a little bit. She often, in her role as a medicine woman, or sort of shaman for her holler, she often took, almost like a godlike power in deciding sometimes, who would live and who wouldn't. And that kind of alarmed me. I know I was writing it. It sounds like I had no control over this, but it did really seem like I was just following her lead in some of the decisions that she made. And they weren't ones that I would agree with, but I felt like they were true to her character, a very practical, no nonsense woman.
Yes, and I'm so excited that you mentioned that, because I was debating on whether to ask you this question, and you just basically read my mind, because as I was reading, I was like, there's something going on with Liddy here. She's putting herself in a position of deciding life or death for a number of different things and people.
Yes.
And I was like, is that intentional? So obviously you're right. You started writing her, and then she is kind of scary. I would use the word formidable. She was very,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, that's a wonderful word to describe her.
Yes. So that pleases me, because it means as a reader, I picked up on what you were doing.
Thank you for picking up on that. I love it.
Yes, absolutely. It came through very clearly. So let's talk about your research. Did you have a lot of background in like the Prohibition era, or is this just one you really wanted to dive into? And what did your research look like?
Well, I think I was drawn to the Prohibition era just because I had dabbled in it a little bit with the Flower Sisters. The Flower Sisters, the dance hall explosion occurred in 1928. And I sort of toggle back and forth between 1928 and 1978 in that first novel. So my interest was piqued there. And so I just kind of dove in to try and find some things that I thought might have legs, as we say, writing a story, a little more complicated story. And what I found out in my research was that a government estimate at that time was that women bootleggers outnumbered men 5-1. And I was shocked by that figure. I know. And I didn't really understand it. It didn't it didn't sort of jive with my idea of bootleggers. I was thinking of men with fedoras and Tommy guns and suits and Model
Right.
A cars, and I just wasn't thinking of women being involved in it. So digging a little further, what I came to understand was the laws at that time forbade the searching of a woman's body. So if the law suspected that you were carrying moonshine, if it was hidden on your person, they couldn't check. So women sort of took advantage of this little loophole in the law, and they packaged moonshine in all sorts of ways on their bodies, whether it was galvanized tanks sort of fitted up against their rib cages with a coat thrown over the top, or they might have a vest that they could slide a flat flask in between their shoulder blades, and they had it in their petticoats and belts, and I mean, you name it. They were almost having a whole fashion industry around this concept of sneaking the moonshine from A to B. And another part of that was that the law, if a law enforcement officer saw a car with a man, driving, if he had a woman inside the car, even if he suspected that the car was moving moonshine, he would not pull over the car, because what they found was arresting a woman, even if she was caught red-handed with a jug of moonshine on her lap, juries at that time were all made up of men. So a jury of 12 men had a very difficult time convicting someone that looked a lot like their daughters or their mothers or grandmas. And so it just seemed like the women got off kind of scot-free, and it wasn't worth their efforts to pursue them. So women did play quite a role in the bootlegging part of that industry.
Well, there you go, reading my mind again, Michelle, because I was going to ask you, I'm like, were there a lot of women moonshiners out there?
Yes, and I'm sure there were women doing the moonshining part of it too, not just the bootlegging or the
bootlegging, right?
But just like Lydia in the book had recipes passed down to her. I think in my part of the country, the Ozarks, there is a very strong Scotch-Irish heritage, and many of those people that came and settled there came with their know-how and their recipes for making moonshine. It was just sort of what people did. It was just a little sideline that they did, as I said, for their own, for their families or for entertainment. And it wasn't until Prohibition, when everyone was very, very thirsty, that these enterprises got even more popular and enlarged and became such more of a dominant thing that people did to make money.
Wow. This is just great stuff. Well, since we got the moonshining side of the story, let's talk about the federal side of the story. Let's talk about. I'm going to call him I think he's a protagonist. I'm going to say John Flanagan, federal agent. Let's talk about how'd you come up with this character, and was he modeled off of anyone?
Yes, that's a wonderful question. I have two Prohibition agents in the book. They're partners, and I really did base them off of a real life couple of Prohibition agents that worked in New York City during Prohibition. And these two real life characters, their names were Izzy and I think Mo. But they were sort of like a Mutt and Jeff kind of characters, and it just gave me such a visual of this couple of guys that had to use their wits to really arrest and bust people for moonshine, because Prohibition agents weren't allowed to use weapons, so they couldn't carry or use a weapon. So they really had to sort of entrap people just by tricking them into letting them find their moonshine. For example, these two showed up one time dressed as a bride and groom at a Catholic church. And the reason was they had heard that there was a ring of priests who were selling communion wine as contraband. And so they busted all this ring of priests. And, that seems like a far-fetched story in the book, but it's really true. And all of the antics that I recount in the book are truly things that were done in the name of trying to find the perpetrators of this business, this bad business. So they were a lot of fun to write.
Well, it was a lot of fun to read, and I'm tickled to know that it's based on history and actual. This is what they actually did.
Yes, I don't think I could have made up anything better than that.
No. Well, John Flanagan, he's kind of he starts off. Well, again, I don't want to avoid spoilers, but he comes into the role very idealistic, right? Grew up seeing what alcoholism had done to his family, his father, and that's another theme that kind of runs through the story too, is like the moonshining business, the running the stills. It was their way of surviving, but it was also like a curse for these families in a way, because it's like you're producing this product that has such damaging effects.
Right.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you, this is a fun question, because I wanted to ask you, have you ever tried moonshine?
Yes, I have.
I want to hear about it.
I have. It's funny. I didn't know a lot about moonshine before I wrote this book, and that was part of researching, was just learning how it was made. And of course, I read a lot, but I also visited the Bourbon Trail when I was doing my research. So I went to Kentucky and toured some of the modern day moonshine operations, which are, truly, it's bourbon is the king there. But bourbon is really just moonshine that has been put in a cask, a wooden cask, and then it gets that wonderful brown color from the wood being aged in there for 6 to 10 years and sometimes more. And that aging process is what mellows it out. And so the stuff that you put into the cask, that is actually white lightning or, moonshine. And so on some of these tours, they would allow us to taste that a little bit of it. And I remember I just put my finger in it and licked it. And I just almost felt like my hair just went out. It was really, really strong. It has quite a kick. So I'm not a huge fan of it myself, but I respect it.
Yeah. Oh, you've got to respect it. That's fascinating. I did not know that. That is the actual moonshine that goes into those caskets, or the caskets.
But in those days with Prohibition, they didn't have time to wait around for things to age. They needed to drink it and move it right then. I learned that one of the tricks back then was to use like a caramelized sugar and add that in so that it had a brown color to it sometimes, because they could get a higher price if it was brown. But that didn't mean it was any better moonshine. It just looked more authentic, I guess, or closer to like a Scotch or something like that.
Wow, that is so fascinating. Yeah, I've never tried it either. I don't drink, and when I did drink back in the day, beer was it. That's about all I could handle. No
okay, well, you've been warned.
Yeah, if you need the paint taken off the side of your house, we've got some
right
some alcohol for you. Well, in the like the first quarter of the book or so, you get that inside look of like how, because Shine loves to make moonshine with Hiram, her father, and she just loves the whole process of it. She just, how did you do any type of just like online research on like how the process of like turning the mash into the actual product that is put in the jars and sent on its way? And
yes, definitely, because like I said, I really didn't know how it worked.
Yeah.
And even though I went on the Bourbon Trail and saw how it is made today, it was very different back then, because these days there are just these beautiful large copper kettles, and they're very carefully regulated with thermometers, and the temperatures are very tightly controlled so that everything is so consistent and comes out the same. But back in those days, they didn't have that. They didn't really have thermometers to do that work. So it really was up to someone that had the know-how from, the tips being handed down through the generations of how to discern when you're making this moonshine, when you get to the part that is drinkable, because moonshine actually has 4 parts to it. And the first part, which is called the 4 shots, it's about the first, I don't know, I want to say 20% or so. It's actually poisonous and it would kill you if you drank it. So that first part that comes out, that first part of the distillate is very dangerous. And the second part, which is called the heads, is it doesn't taste very good, but it won't kill you. It might make you go blind, though, I have to be honest. So it's not recommended either. And then finally, there's a 30% of it after that is what they call the hearts. And that is the best part, what everyone is striving for. And supposedly, there's just a turn in the smell. It smells a little bit sweeter. Some people say like pineapples. And these experts, these people who have been making it for years or generations, they're able to tell just by the taste of, or the smell and taste when they've gotten there. And then the last part is called the tails, and it's just sort of when the batch turns a little oily, like it's right at the end, and you usually throw that part away too. So all of that effort for this little 30% slice of it that is really supposedly enjoyable. And I just had a lot more respect for these moonshine makers after, touring how it's done today and thinking of how they had to just figure that out on their own with their experience and their wits, I guess.
Yeah, just like trial and error.
Yeah, exactly.
And what's clever too is that your novel is broken up into sections with those titles.
Oh yes,
different
I
stages.
couldn't resist it. It was
had
perfect.
to. Yeah, and it matched so perfectly to like what was going on in that section. Well, so the novel kind of shifts a bit from the Missouri Ozarks, where the Strongs are, trying to continue this operation, knowing that now you mentioned, I want to know how to pronounce it. So the Prohibition officers, they would call, is it Prohis or Prohis?
I have said Prohis. I assume that's how it is, but
I figured it's probably because that's the way it's pronounced.
Yeah,
Prohis. They call them Prohis, but it also shifts to Arkansas, Hot Springs, Arkansas, and you get like some gangster, action going on in this section. And like I don't think it's not a spoiler.
No.
Okay. How fun was it to write Al Capone into your story with your characters?
It was really fun. And I think what made it really fun was that I knew that he frequented Hot Springs as a gangster because during that time, as I mentioned, Hot Springs was considered this loose buckle on the Bible Belt. And even though Prohibition had been in place since the 1880s in Arkansas, they had like a 30-year head start on the rest of the country. Somehow this little town of Hot Springs, from the mayor on down, just decided that the laws didn't apply to them there. So even though drinking was against the law, they had plenty of moonshine and other spirits there. They also had gambling, which was highly illegal, all kinds of gambling from poker to roulette, etc. They even had a horse track, so you could go bet on the horses. Also illegal. And then there was prostitution and other things that sort of spring up around all of these other illicit activities, I guess you could say. And so it really was like a little bubble. I liken it to our modern day Las Vegas, sort of where whatever happened in Hot Springs stayed in Hot Springs. And it became a real popular place for people like Al Capone to vacation. And he wasn't the only one that did it. And it was interesting to me that these gangsters of all types would come down, bet on the ponies, have some drinks, stay at the Arlington Hotel. And they never, they had like a gentleman's agreement where they never shot each other. It was like they truly were on vacation. Once they left, I mean, maybe everybody was fair game again. I don't know. But I thought it was kind of funny that they considered it to sort of a neutral space.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it was such a fun kind of, the shift a little bit into that space where there was so much going on and so historical. And I'm a huge history reader and history fan, so it makes me want to go out and read some stuff about this, which you are so kind enough to include in your book at the back of the
Yes.
book.
Yeah.
Just some suggested reading for folks who are interested in learning more. Um, did Was there any resource in particular you found, very helpful? Was there a particular author that maybe people should know about, or
Um,
historian that is really
well,
well known for this?
I really benefited just by going down to Hot Springs myself and kind of walking around and just sort of soaking in that beautiful bathhouse row. It's still there today. There's probably 10 or 12 of these really gorgeous buildings where people used to go on vacation. There's even a little park bench that has a little statue of Al Capone. So I have my picture with Al. Um, but the resources I found down there were terrific. They had a couple of local history books. You've probably seen maybe something similar where you live. They're sort of brown sepia toned photographs on the front, and they're very slim novels. I think they're from Arcadia Press, but
Yeah.
they always highlight something about local history. And Hot Springs had several of those, and I picked those up and just devoured them because they were very interesting. Not just Prohibition era, but the whole history of Hot Springs,
Mhm.
and also a lot about just that Prohibition era
Mhm.
too. So those were very important books for me. I toured the Gangster Museum when I was down there.
How
Um,
fun.
it was a lot of fun. And I also, of course, had to have a mineral bath because Hot Springs is known for those mineral springs that are supposed to have healing qualities, and a
Absolutely.
massage too while I was at it. And I know that sounds really tough. It was a sacrifice for me to have to do that, but I wanted to make sure I got all the details right.
You really went through it, Michelle. You
I'm
really had a
thrilled.
hard time on that
Yep.
research trip.
Yep. You're welcome, everybody.
You're welcome. Well, so that's a good overview of just like the history and the research that you put in. But I'd like to maybe in the our final sequence here is just to talk about the themes that you kind of seem to return to. Like I said, and I'm going to show the other book too at the end here. Uh, you have a strong theme of like the resilience of women, families, sisters, in particular. Is
Yes.
there any, is that something you set out to do, or is that just the way you're like, I'm going to tell a story about sisters, or just the power of women, to kind of unite in this kind of male dominated era, this field, you know, then just speak to the power of just the women in this book. They're just amazing.
I'm glad you think so. I really enjoyed writing them. Yes, I did set out to write a story about strong women and sisters, but I would say, even though I knew that their end goal was keeping the family together, keeping the farm going, all of that, what I didn't expect was sort of the circuitous journey that they took. And I think they all grew in a way to understand that family really goes beyond bloodlines. That family is sometimes who you choose, not who you're born to. And I think that they expanded their concept of what family is and what it meant to them over the course of the book.
I love that. I love that about this book. I was just gonna touch on that as well. Again, you're just reading.
We
You're
got a
picking up.
mind meld going on. I
We
love
do.
it.
Yeah, it's the I have it written down here in my notes that it's there was this beautiful again, I don't want to give away too much, but it's not really, it's just like a reflection about there's similarities between who, the act of the putting together the moonshine, all of these unusual and different ingredients, right?
Yes.
Adding heat, and then, and the characters reflecting like, hey, this is kind of like how we choose our families, right? It's just like you apply the heat and then it makes this beautiful kind of like nectar, at the
Mhm.
end of it. I couldn't agree with that more. Family is who you choose to surround yourself with in your
Yes,
life.
yes, yeah.
Um, so I love that. Now, of course, I have to ask you, uh, before we get there, I am gonna ask you what you're working on next, but just personally, because I always love asking authors this, like, what are you currently reading, or what books inspire you? What stories?
Mm.
Is it fiction? Is it, history? Is it, what books do you read?
Okay. That's a great question. I always love hearing what people are reading just because there's so many books out there. I almost feel like I do need a personal recommendation just to, get through all of the pile and find those books that I will, love or want to engage with. So, what I just finished was Elizabeth Strout's new novel, The Things We Never Say.
Oh,
And it in typical Elizabeth Strout style. It was just another beautiful, quiet, heartfelt story. This one is not set in Maine, but it's adjacent. I think it's in Massachusetts. But she always weaves in just a wonderful community of characters, and her character of Artie in this book is no different. And I really enjoyed reading her. I admire her quite a bit. Um, her Olive Kitteridge books are some of my very favorite and some of the few books that I have reread. I don't typically reread books because life is short, but I
right.
reread Olive Kitteridge. One of the books that really inspired me as a writer is one that's maybe not as well known. It's called The Moonflower Vine by Jetta
Oh,
Carlton. And she wrote this book, I believe, in the 1950s, and it
oh,
kind of got rediscovered. I think Jane Smiley may have found it and reissued it with a forward with Jane Smiley's forward, and I think it got a little more attention then. But it's also just a beautiful story about the Ozarks and a family of four sisters. So you get a bonus sister in this novel, with a lot of challenges and a very interesting family drama going on. So when I read that book, I really did feel inspired to pursue writing about the Ozarks too myself. So,
wow.
yeah, so that's two.
That's
Um,
too mhm.
yeah.
That's great. No, and you've inspired me because and I'm actually writing down The Moonflower Vine. I wanna check that out. Um, I just recently finished reading a novel, set in there's really no timeline, but I think it's more modern day, maybe 70s or 80s, and it is set, in the Missouri Ozarks. It's more contemporary, and it speaks to, coal mining town, Little Black Mountain, and, so I just had finished reading this
Oh,
when
wow.
when I started reading the Moonshine Women, and I'm like, "This is like serendipity right here," you know?
Very much. I like that.
Yeah, and then behind me on my shelf, I have a 2-volume history, from a university press of a history of the Ozarks, and now you've given me I'm like, "Oh, now I'm diving in." So,
Wonderful.
that's how it happens. Um, alright, well, before I show, both books here again, you have to tell us because I really hope now you said you had a 2 novel deal with Kensington,
Yeah.
but please tell me you've got more deals. You're working on something else.
Yeah, I'm very happy to report, yes, that I did sign another two-book deal with Kensington this past February. So, yay!
Oh, that's
Both,
great.
both
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's both thrilling and terrifying. What can I say?
It's
Um,
yeah,
yeah,
most good things are, right?
yes. So, my next story is also going to be set in the Missouri Ozarks, and it will feature strong women. It is based on a real life thing that happened, but it is about a female barnstorming basketball team from the 1930s and 40s that sprung up around the Missouri Ozarks. And these women would travel the country, 60 or 70,000 miles a year in a station wagon, and play men's teams by men's rules. And they won 80% of their games, which
What?
I just found astounding. I know. So I'm truly looking forward to writing this book. Yeah.
Uh,
And I played basketball in high school, so it's just kind of fun for me.
it's just perfect.
Yeah.
I'm just amazed, like, how do you root out these type of stories from history? I have never heard of this. And
Just yeah,
yeah,
just a lot of reading, as I'm sure you can relate to.
yeah,
I when I'm researching, I'm just always keeping my ear out for something. So even while I was researching the Moonshine Women, I would come across another little thing that sounded interesting. And some of them, like I said, some of them maybe are just a short story or a paragraph, but when you hear something that has a lot of potential to spin out as a novel. And when I read an article about these women playing basketball like that, with their full makeup and their hair all fixed and just kicking these guys' butts, I just
love
was
it.
like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's gonna be fun.
Well, I cannot wait for that when that comes out. And I hope we can have you back on for another interview.
I would love it.
Well, in the meantime, though, let me just remind folks, you've got to check out Michelle's novels. Um, we have the Flower Sisters here. This is the book I'm going to be starting very soon because I finished the Moonshine Women. So I'm going to go back to your first. I'm very excited
Yay.
for that. Yay! The Flower Sisters from Kensington, Kensington Books, and cannot say enough about the Moonshine Women. And I meant to ask you earlier. The dialogue in here, it was just fantastic, and it had me cracking up. How did you capture the dialect and just how they really, how their accents were, how they talked back then, the witty little, Southern phrases and, uh, you had an ear for that. It was amazing.
Thank you. I will take that as a very high compliment. Well, of course, I grew up in that area, so I think
Okay.
there's always a little bit of that translates to the page. But I also read quite a bit of. There was an Ozark folklore expert that I read a lot of his books about superstitions and phrases and things that that things they used for everyday language that inspired me as well. It's always fun to put that kind of language in. I feel like it's not only is it, I guess more accurate, but it really is descriptive in a way
Mhm.
that is new. And I think readers enjoy, seeing something in a new way or hearing something in a new way.
I couldn't agree more. It was so colorful to
Mhm.
my ears, if that
Yeah.
makes no sense, but
Colorful
you know what
to
I
your
mean,
ears.
colorful to
Yeah,
your ears.
that's
I
perfect.
would just read some of these especially when the sisters are just having they were so funny together. But oh, I just had so much fun reading this, and I
Aw.
can't
Thank
recommend it
you,
enough.
Peggy.
Yes, you're welcome, and I know our book browse members really love this as well. So thank you so much, Michelle, for joining us for this book browse author interview, and
Thank
we just
you.
wish you great success in your next novel. And I'm sure
Great.
that you will be featured again in book
Oh, I
browse
hope so. I hope
when that
so.
comes out. And yeah, I'd love to have you back. So
Great. Thank you, Peggy. I
anyway,
really appreciate you taking the time to get to know my strong women.
you're strong women,
Yes.
and I loved it. So I'm going to be recommending this, and I'll probably loan this to my sister next. I'm like, you got to read this one. So she's next on the list.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks again, and take care, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Thank you, Peggy. Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye bye.